Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to Rebellious Noise. My name is Dan and I am here again with Scott, Lucas and Rob, and we are going to be discussing all things Clash of Champions Gold Rush today.
Gotta have a
So,
tagline.
exactly, and getting in the spirit of championships, obviously I'm sitting here with my Becky Two Belts t-shirt, someone who is sorely missed. So, we are going to kick off the show, I think, with the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, where the current champions, Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro, will take on Rob's boys, the Lucha House Party. Who wants to go first on this one? All right, don't all go at once. I'll go then. I'll just go Cesaro and Nakamura retention. There you go.
Yeah,
Nice and easy.
yeah. I don't see any reason to take the titles off. And we were talking about a few months back, weren't we, on one of the reviews that it looked like Lucha House Party could be pushed to the top of the division, but they haven't done anything with him since, and it doesn't make any sense to take the title of these two. So I think I'll have to agree with you there.
Yeah, I think the same. I think didn't Cesaro and Shinsuke only win them at Extreme Rules as well? I know they're having shorter title reigns now, but I don't know if 2 months, if that's like what they've been looking to do. I'm interested to see where the Lucha House Party goes, and now they've got Kalisto back though, and they do deserve the belts probably later on down the line, but this is not the occasion in my opinion. So yeah, Cesaro and Shinsuke to retain.
Yeah. Do you know what? Unfortunately, I have to agree with you, and I really don't want to. But the reason I'm saying that is because one of the Lucha House Party, I was just trying to find it, but I can't find the exact image. But one of them put up a post with their mask off, but their head facing away from the camera, and it said like goodbye or something. So I reckon there's going to be a turn, or they're going to start to like break them up, and they're going to be independent
Of course they
or
are,
something like that.
because they haven't broken up enough teams lately.
I feel like it's gonna happen soon. I mean, Kalisto's come back, and there's been a rupture in the the way they've been. So yeah, and obviously it doesn't make sense for Shinsuke and Cesaro to just lose them when they've just kind of won them. So yeah, for that reason.
Exactly. And so then that was nice and easy, guys, wasn't it? All in agreement to start with.
I don't know if it'll be like that all the time.
Definitely not. No. But sticking with SmackDown anyway, we move on to the SmackDown Women's Championship, in which Bayley will defend her championship against Nikki Cross.
This is another one where I guess we're all going to kind of agree with. I guess I think obviously Sasha is back on SmackDown. If anyone hasn't seen it yet, well, you haven't seen it then, whatever. But Sasha is back, and I think obviously that will be the title feud, and there'll be no need to get the belt off of Bayley at this time. The only thing I'll kind of say is that Nikki Cross, didn't she lose to Bayley twice now already? I believe over the summer. As did I think some of the others too that were in that fatal four-way match, and so they have obviously got to be careful, kind of not to kind of keep making her lose. But yeah, I think this is quite a default Bayley kind of win. I think Sasha might get involved somehow, but it might even be after the match perhaps. Otherwise, there's another attack just on SmackDown. But yeah, Bayley would be my pick to win this one.
Yeah, I feel like they've got to do something with Sasha here, but yeah, which kind of makes you think, well, maybe then Sasha would cost Bayley, because obviously for months this has been going on, and we thought that was going to be how it turned. I like how Bayley's turned it around and been like, I did it because I knew you were going to do it first, Sasha. So I really like the way they played that up. But then that still leaves the possibility of Sasha getting her own back by, attacking her and getting a title off her, because I feel like the whole point feud should be the title, but it's one of those feuds that people, we always look at certain feuds and go, it doesn't need the title, it doesn't need it. It's big enough. So you could definitely argue that with this. So I got a weird feeling they could do it, but I think ultimately it'd be the right decision to keep it on Bayley. And considering they've built up so much, and so much of the feud has been about championships, having them fight for a championship seems the best way to go. So I'm gonna say Bayley's gonna keep it.
Yeah, because what would they really go to if Nikki Cross was to win? Who would she feud with? Because obviously Bayley and Sasha are the hottest commodities probably in the entire division.
Probably Lexi, that's about it.
Yeah,
Lexi Bliss.
yeah.
But I mean, I think it's quite a drop personally from where the belts spin. especially obviously with having SummerSlam have Asuka fight for both. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for Nikki in the future, but I think this feud should be resolved with Sasha hopefully winning the Women's Championship at some point. I don't know when it's going to end though. Do we now lead to Survivor Series?
Inside Hell in a Cell, mate.
Hell in a Cell, yeah, Hell in a Cell's coming next. I'm thinking with the chair being involved, do they wait till TLC end of the year, like a big blow off end of the year kind of thing?
A chairs match.
It's a long way to wait though for that when you have got Hell in a Cell in the middle, and Hell in a Cell would be a good way to do it. We don't need the title either, so again, that's starting to make me think, oh, maybe they are going to take it off her, but I'm sticking.
So I agree. I reckon Bayley will retain, but I think it's going to be Nikki that gets interrupted, and I think there's still something going on with her and Alexa. Obviously, as you've seen, when it was only a couple of weeks ago, she done Sister Abigail.
Did it really well as well. It looked cool.
Yeah, you're better than Brian.
So I reckon it will be Alexa cost Nikki because they're going to build that feud, and then after Sasha will come down and get her own back on Bayley. I nearly said Sasha then. So Sasha will come down and get her own back on Bayley. Yeah, so that way Bayley still retains. It still leads on to where we need them with them on a title, as you just said, leading up to probably Hell in a Cell or something. And then we get two feuds that we are actually interested in.
Yeah, I'm going to be boring. Sorry.
What's that down there?
Carry on.
Cat just jumped up. Stop, get down.
What's your prediction, Cat?
She's gone now. She's gone.
Yeah, so I'm going to be pretty boring and go for a Bayley clean sweep. I think the Sasha Bayley thing, I think, will probably go to Hell in a Cell. It's the most built up like feud that you could realistically say deserves like a Hell in a Cell kind of stipulation. Like, I know it's been weakened like over the years with the addition of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. But I do think Hell in a Cell, Sasha Bayley could possibly be where Sasha wins the championship. But, you know, we mentioned on the last one, you know, could they try and eke it out to WrestleMania, which would then mean a different challenger for Bayley at Hell in a Cell, which potentially could be a way of them putting it on Nikki, having Nikki defend it inside Hell in a Cell against Bliss, with the whole Fiend thing. And it's one of those, it's kind of strange, but I do still think Bayley is gonna retain the championship. And yeah,
so we'll agree again.
We do indeed. And so, sticking with women, the next one is going to be the Women's Tag Team Championships, where Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax are defending against, now, what are they calling themselves? Living Riots, Riott Squad, Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott. There we go. What do you guys think to this one? Are we going to see a title change, or are we going to see a retention?
Well, so far, we've done 2 retentions, haven't we? So I guess eventually a title's changed hands. But I just feel like it's too soon for these two, Shayna and Nia, to lose it, considering the way they started their team just a month ago. But at the same time, Riott Squad's being built back up. Clearly, they had that thing where they were on the pre-show and Iconics were working against them. Then they had that match where they ended up obviously leading to them splitting up the Iconics as well. So they're obviously being built for a reason. And it does make me worry that Shayna and Nia were just a placeholder and that this is where they're going to change hands. I don't know. They really seem to be pushing them. So, yeah, I'm going to go out and say Riott Squad are going to win it.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm going to go with retention. I know it sounds really boring because obviously now it's 3. But I think they just won them, and I guess unless they're going to tease again, like we're thinking about Hell in a Cell coming up and Survivor Series coming up, and the bigger events, obviously, out of the rest of the year, really. And there's a few things they could do to the women, I guess. Like again, they could even spearhead Nia and Shayna into a Hell in a Cell kind of feud. Like obviously the partner not getting along, they've been champs for a little bit, and obviously then they're going to disagree, fall out. Black would, they got. I think Hell in a Cell's in it's end of October now, isn't it? So it's quite a stretch. Still quite a stretch to get there. Not enough TV time to kind of build something up. I mean, they built Payback up after a week, so by 6 weeks' time we could have two blood feuds here. I'm not really interested in this match though, to be honest. I think both teams are too new for me to kind of really get behind. And I guess this is just the ongoing problem with, obviously, the WWE tag divisions with both genders, this is as well, where they just build up a tag team for a little while, they lose interest, they split them up. And so why am I invested when we've seen, obviously, better tag teams like the Iconics split up, and even like Nikki Cross and Alexa potentially looking to go that way too. And just now we've got random two people who apparently hate each other, and two people who, let's be real, just because they released everyone else, they had to think of a team to have, for the women's division. But I'm gonna go with the retention. I think. Should I be bold? Tell you what, let's be bold. I'll use my extra kind of bonus thing here to predict that the finish will be Shayna Baszler destroying both of them again. They're going to reuse the same finish from last month with keeping Nia out of the way, and Shayna will basically make them both tap out. That's my bold finish there, my bold point.
Wow.
That is proper bold.
That is. It's hard because on one end of it, it doesn't make sense taking the title off of a newly formed team. Unless they're going to be a transitional. But then if they were going to be, then they could have just give it to the Iconics, then have the stipulation. If you lose the title, you have to break up as well. That could have been something they added in, and it would have worked. But it doesn't make sense people like Nia and Shayna, who are quite dominant, then losing to someone like the Riott Squad. I can't see it.
I guess they could play the whole you're not a proper team thing and we're best mates again and you guys don't even like each other, And if there's anyone that they don't mind messing about, it seems to be Shayna Baszler this year. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they did it that way. Because then it gives them the opportunity to go into this obvious feud of Nia and Shayna. It's a bit soon, but I feel like that's why they're doing it.
I guess, but then I like the odd. It's odd that I like the odd tag teams. Like we've had the Rock and Sock connection, and then we had Dude Love and Austin. It just for some reason they work, and Nia and Shayna, I reckon, can get on the same page. It'll be like another Sheamus Cesaro sort of thing that starts off and then they grow as a team. So that's what I think. I think that they're going to retain.
I think that those things they do need more time. Which obviously, and when we had Sheamus Cesaro, obviously that was a best of 7 series, then turned into teaming, and we saw that week in week out. And then even when we've had like Team Hell No, again that was Daniel Bryan and Kane feuding and kind of disagreeing and fighting over AJ week in, week out, constantly, and then a build to winning the tag belts. And you could argue that they were with just more high-profile performers. If Stone Cold says he wants to team with Dude Love, like, people are going to go, oh, that's must-see TV. But if, like Cedric Alexander and someone would go, we're a team now, like, people go, well, we don't know who these people are. I feel obviously it's not Nia Shayna's fault, obviously, at that time. Obviously, and this is where WWE's current thing of just changing things every month. It's one of the bad things to it because obviously a month ago this wasn't even a thing, and now obviously they want to pay with you. Above teams which 1 month ago, like the Iconics and Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, were kind of surefire tag teams, and now they're basically split up. I think that Nia and Shayna, they wanted more to feuds, what I'm getting at, and just maybe they might skip to it, but I still don't see them losing to the Riott Squad.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just it's hard to see them lose when they're slowly building something. They're starting to look dominant, especially the way the match finished, on the following pay-per-view. If they're going to do stuff like that, then they can't have them lose to two people like the Riott Squad straight away. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So that's why I reckon they're going to retain.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, for me, it's like it could go, I think obviously it's going to sound so cliche, it could go one of two ways. Like, either team could win, which is obvious because it's a match.
You can't split your prediction, mate. It doesn't work like that.
I think I'll have. I think the champions coming out are going to be Shayna Baszler and Liv Morgan. So, See, it could like so from the way that like Lucas was saying it about like with Shayna destroying both of them, it could also go the other way where like Shayna could just get annoyed with Nia and just like lock in a Kirifuda clutch on Nia Jax and then like one of the Riott Squad pin her or something to then win the championships that way. Do you know? Thinking about it before the match, I was like, before we did the predictions, I was saying to myself, Riott Squad, Riott Squad, Riott Squad. Hearing you guys saying Baszler and Nia Jax, it's not changing my mind, mate. I think it's got to be Riott Squad for me. I think they're more of the, it sounds strange, more of the established tag team out of the two. And obviously it's then who do you put them against? But I feel that Liv and Ruby would be better off being champions that could go across the three brands, because like they could go across that, they could go down to NXT, they could go across to SmackDown. Whereas I think with Shayna and Jax, it's like, do they really have that much trust in Nia Jax at this time to go across three brands and potentially like, you know, work 3 separate shows a week? Whereas I think it's more likely that they could with the Riott Squad. So, but obviously they've got to be careful with Ruby because obviously she's had her share of injuries, so they want to, I guess, kind of keep her in cotton wool a little bit. But you know, I do feel like it's going to be a Riott Squad win, but I think it's going to be something where Shayna deliberately will like cost Nia the title, sort of thing. But
yeah, maybe it's like Nia's kind of silly, kind of incompetent kind of thing she's been playing up lately will kind of annoy Shayna. Shayna goes, no, what, screw it.
Yeah, Sodja basically. And
yeah,
there you go. So
yeah, I do think the Riott Squad got a bit of a raw deal last time they were around as well, and they weren't, obviously they were fed to Ronda, who obviously, you know, dominated the division for that year, and then obviously Becky Lynch came in and she obviously again, you know, eclipsed kind of any kind of popularity that anyone else had. So I think they got a bit of a rough deal. And we're seeing that kind of like, oh, which of the three girls who always lose kind of thing. Especially Ruby, I think they built her up really well. And the whole thing behind the team is good. And I think there is obviously a case here where WWE spent a lot of time over the past kind of 10 years kind of re-educating their audience. So the same audience that watched stuff in the Attitude Era, obviously have had to learn that, well, not all girls can be like Sable or like Joy Wilson. There's always alternatives. And I think obviously, you know, the Riott Squad, it ticks a lot of those boxes, you know, because there's a lot of obviously female WWE fans who would watch them and be like, yeah, that's me. You know, I can look up to that and I can get. So there is a lot of positives to the Riott Squad being champions, but perhaps it's something they just don't pull the trigger on yet, is what I'm thinking. But I am also all for Nia Jax just not being involved in the company at all. So if that was to happen, that's fine. I'm fine either way with it.
Oh dear.
fair enough. So now we move on to it's a match that we kind of speculated was going to happen, and it's now been confirmed, and that is the Intercontinental Championship ladder match, triple threat between Jeff Hardy, Sami Zayn, and AJ Styles.
I think it's the match I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, I think as well, this is probably going to be where we're all most split as well, because you know, obviously there's 3 options. You got obviously Jeff Hardy, who is the current champion, Sami Zayn, who is the champion that never lost the title, and AJ, who lost the title but feels that he's the uncrowned champion. Yeah, it's going to be a heck of a match, though. I think. Like, I feel that Jeff is going to come out still your Intercontinental champion, though, having just signed a new deal as well. So I think, you know, that'll probably be like, in my opinion, I think Vince is probably going to see that, oh, well, he could have gone and joined his brother in like, AEW, but he's chosen to stay here. So, you know, as a reward for that kind of thing, we're going to keep the Intercontinental Championship on him. And obviously being the first singles title that Jeff won in WWE as well, he's got kind of a rich history with that belt. But yeah, I think, as you say, Scott, I think it's going to be like a really good match. I probably feel this is going to be match of the night.
Yeah, I hope so. Definitely has potential.
I mean, I just hope that they give this enough time and just don't like over-script it too much. You know, there's 3 guys in there that are superb at what they do, and if this is anything other than a 5-star classic, obviously not in a Tokyo Dome, so Mr. Meltzer's not going to give it 7, but it's going to be a heck of a match.
I'm just hoping they don't do a screwy, weird kind of finish that they like to do, similar to how they did at WrestleMania, I think. And obviously, it's weird because I've been to a friend the other day about these, and obviously, cage matches, ladder matches, table matches, obviously, they've been done so many times. And so we're at the stage where we've seen kind of every conceivable way of these objects and structures being used. But they just get to a point where you have to just have like a definitive winner. And what I'm worried that they're going to do is they're going to have something, especially because they've got the whole uncrowned, because they keep mentioning the uncrowned champion and the champion never lost. I'm worried that they might end up doing one of those, like, 2 people get the belt kind of thing to continue it.
But will they have the one belt hanging, or will they have Sami's and Jeff's? So one could pull one pull the other down, yeah. Mm-hmm. So
well, I don't know. I'm hoping that they're just choosing to pretend that that's all in Sami's head, that he thinks that. They haven't acknowledged it on screen. I've noticed even yesterday on SmackDown, when he kept trying to get Greg to announce it, that he was the champion, he got first interrupted by Styles and then got interrupted by Jeff afterwards. So they're kind of being very clear that only Sami Zayn is kind of allowed to say, yeah. and Corey, who obviously sides more with the villains in terms of side of things.
But a smart thing on that as well was on the graphic, because he was saying before about, my graphic doesn't say Intercontinental Champion. This time it did, but it said former Intercontinental Champion. So
it's only literally Sami Zayn who's allowed to kind of say this. So I'm guessing that it's one of those things. Well, look, so by possible elimination, I don't see Styles winning. That's like, it's not a bold point in mind, but I don't see Styles winning. I think it's been done as well in a ladder match, because Sami Zayn lost from SmackDown to AJ Styles, and obviously that's his first match back. And I guess if it was a normal triple threat match, I would assume that he would take the pin in that too. So I'm guessing they don't want obviously 2 pinfall losses kind of, straight out the gate. And the ladder match done with that. So I will go with a Jeff retention as well. I think just like Dan said, like with signing the new contract, you don't even really start the reign too. I think, there's definitely much more Jeff that we can see.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be another retention for Jeff. As you both rightly said, he signed a new contract. But then at the same time, I would like to see something from Sami Zayn. So if Sami wins, I wouldn't mind it. But I'm going with Jeff, but I wouldn't mind Sami winning. But what I think is going to happen is when they've got the belt above the ring, if Sami comes out with his one, I think he'll want his one put up there so he can pull it back down. That's the sort of thing, because the way he's beaten, I think that's something that they would do, and he would want to do that. So having his belt put up, and then, or even the other one pulled down and him and his one up, because it's his title. Because he keeps saying he has the real belt. So,
yeah.
So something like that. So I would like to see that. But like you said, I reckon it could be a 5-star. It could be match of the night. It has potential to be match of the night, 100%. And I'm hoping that when we review it, this is the match that we talk about more than, and we're not like just downhearted about it. And it's not just, we wash past it like we have in previous reviews because of how we've been screwed throughout the match.
Yeah, I think the biggest fear for me is that because AJ's in it, it reminds me of AJ Nakamura, and that was the biggest letdown I think in the past few years, as far as like we all thought it was going to be possibly match of the year, and it ended up a feud where people kicked each other in the nuts, like so. That's my only worry with this, because it definitely has the potential to be one of the it has the potential to be match of the year, like not just match of the night. So I hope we're right with that. But as far as prediction goes, I'm going to go with Jeff as well. Like what Dan was saying, as far as this possibly being a bit of a reward for Jeff for long service and loyalty and all that kind of stuff, and also allowing them to use the silliness in the Sheamus feud, So I feel like Jeff winning it kind of made sense at the time, and him keeping it does the same, because you still do everything that you wanted to do, So yeah, I think for those reasons, I think Jeff is most likely to keep it. And I do feel like you guys were saying as well, they're going to do the whole Sami thing was in his head. Like he needs to lose it. So like not lose it, hasn't technically got it, but lose that claim And if he loses this match, he's lost that claim. So I think that's where they're going to have a clean break of that. AJ would be cool, but it just, for me, there's no reason to take it off Jeff. So.
Yeah, I also see. I don't know if you watch other people's like the wrestlers' Twitches and stuff. But AJ was saying
and they've been banned. What's going on there?
AJ was saying that he would like to go win the tag team champions with someone. He has someone in mind. He hasn't said who. Was it Baszler?
Yeah, because Baszler also said he wanted to make a club with Cole and AJ. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. I only see a bit of it appear on my timeline. So
it would make sense that they were talking.
Yeah. So I mean, if he's going to go to maybe wanting to do that, then there's always an option for that to happen down the line. So him losing now could start building something up anyway. So.
But then the thing is, knowing WWE, they're probably going to have their theme music as if you like a lot of chocolate on your biscuits. Club.
They got rights to that.
Well, I don't know.
I'd argue though, even if Sami doesn't win, that I think he could actually end up being Jeff's first feud anyway, because he would then go down like, I've never been pinned still.
Yeah.
You know, like as much as obviously Jeff grabs the belt, he said, you know, he's never been pinned. Jeff's never pinned Sami. So I think, well, though again, recording this pre-recording next week of SmackDown, most likely we're going to have Jeff versus Sami Zayn. That's most likely. So, but yeah, no, it's an interesting one. I think this match should be very good, and it's just interesting to see a ladder match outside of Mania and TLC. So it's kind of it feels like and it feels natural that we're doing this here. You know, it feels like solid storytelling. To be fair, more so than just like, it's TLC, so we've got to have a ladder match now. So I'm happy if they're going to start doing more stuff like that too.
Yeah, I think as well though, this is one of those where I think it would have been like an amazing match to have like when crowds had returned as well. Because I mean, we know like how over all three guys are with the WWE Universe pretty much. Like I know for me and Scott, we were there at the Raw after WrestleMania 35 when Sami returned, and just the atmosphere in the Barclays Center, it just went absolutely insane when Sami Zayn's music hit, and it was just, and then obviously the Hardy Boys when they returned as well, like Jeff's always been over with the crowd anyway, and obviously AJ just speaks for himself, and
probably the biggest over the past few years with AJ.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously they're a bit restricted on what they can do because of not knowing time scales of when fans are going to be allowed in. So it's like, how much do you kind of hold off until fans are allowed back? But I do feel as though this is not the last time we're going to see this match. I think we may see it again once crowds return, like to an arena. You know, potentially it could be like around like the Rumble time. You know, hopefully, fingers crossed that the world's in a better place by then. So,
I think you're on your first point about stuff they're holding back. We've mentioned this obviously in all these all year, haven't we? But I think now the fact they've had a steel cage match from Raw, having a ladder match as part of this, a ladder match from Mania too, they're having Hell in a Cell. I think they are just accepting they are going to continue with big matches regardless of whether there's fans or not. And the Thunderdome adds at least a spectacle to it, to an audience. You know, when you're watching it, obviously on a TV on the network. So I think they have to accept that we can't just hold on. The only thing kind of they're holding on to more is kind of when they start bringing in, you know, people like Goldberg and potentially if they re-sign Lesnar for next year. I think that's the only thing they kind of wanted to hold back. But everything else, because even like Roman Reigns have brought him back on TV before crowds. You know, they've done kind of everything they can do. So I think that point now, same thing with Sasha and Bayley, they broke them up again without a crowd. So it's, you know, big stuff like that is like fine. The only kind of thing, I guess, is when those big names like Goldberg, Lesnar, potentially Undertaker, etc., return next year. You know,
he's retired, mate.
I don't know. Yeah, well, that's a whole other podcast. But yeah, I don't think they're going to wait. Basically, what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so, on the subject of you speaking about Roman Reigns, it leads nicely into my my next match, which is the Universal Championship between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. Rob, I've already put you down because I think we know which way you're going here. So I've put you down for Jey Uso because obviously the Uso with a juice.
Yeah, do you go with the heart or do you go with your mind to try and win the predictions?
Do you know what? Just I would love to see Jey Uso win it so bad, but we know full well it's not going to happen. I think it'll be a unanimous decision that Roman retains.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I sent you the picture of the Jay with the Universal title. Which you know, I would willingly take that. I'll tell you what I do like the way they're using this. Like, obviously they got the family, like the bloodline in it, and they're mentioning that a lot. But they're using like this weird sympathy thing for Jey Uso that all of a sudden he's now becoming someone without Jim. Like, do you know what I mean? Without his brother, and it's nice to see that happen because last time. I think he got stuck in commentary.
I think we could see Jimmy back though, because I know they said he was probably going to be out until around November, but I mean we don't know how his recovery's going. Like, I mean we're only 2 months out from his potential return date, and we've seen people come back early before. You know, could they do the old Bella twins twin magic kind of thing? And
I think if anyone's gonna know that they've switched, it's got to be Roman, surely.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Did I hate Us? Come on.
But it's a good way to do it, like for the you know basically a world title. It's a good time to try and do the old switch up.
But yeah, I reckon Roman will retain. But I love how they're doing this weird like sympathy family thing that Roman doesn't want to unleash himself against him. But then I think when the minute that bell rings, it'll be a completely different Roman that we see, which I'm looking forward to seeing.
You don't think it's going to be like an old like finger poke of doom thing where it's like it'll just lay down for him?
Nah, no. Well, I hope not.
I had a weird feeling that is what Reigns might be setting up, but I thought it just just a tiny thing in the back of my mind, and I just had a weird feeling that maybe that he's still playing Paul Heyman, and that it will just kind of like. But I think that title means too much to him. I know that's the point of the character at the moment, but I think the title means too much to him.
Yeah, and so Lucas, I've put you down already for an Otis cash in.
No, I'm not going to go with that today. I think, look, I'll be very quick here in terms of who I predict who's going to win. I think it's Roman Reigns, like Roman Reigns all day. But, and here's the but, like I have to respect the fact that WWE, and I think we should all give more respect to the fact that WWE are doing this story and are willing to kind of, because it's a first in a lot of ways. Like usually when a tag team gets injured, they both go off TV. They they just don't like their tag team for some reason wrestling, by themselves. I also get a feeling that this is a kind of, that in this period, we're seeing a lot of these kind of what I'm going to call kind of request matches. And I can only imagine that Jey Uso and Roman Reigns are a family. There must have been discussions at some point of like, if we ever had a match, we'd do this. If we ever had a promo against each other, we'd do this. Like, because they're blood, they're family. I mean, they're not more than just family. That family of, that whole island of Samoa, essentially, like they're all wrestlers and they're all, some of the best of all time, essentially. And there must have been that discussion. And when you've got the fact that they can just call The Rock and just be like, yeah, how can I do a main event match? Like the fact that they can just call like Rikishi, they can, all these people they got influences of, and I think this is one of those where obviously Roman Reigns can't do he's showing up the end thing as well, because otherwise we're just watching Jey Uso kind of just walk around the ring for maybe 15 minutes. So he can't do that. So obviously it isn't going to be his first kind of proper match, I guess, since returning in a weird kind of way. And this has, if they don't, again, like this one, along with the WWE title match, which we'll get to obviously next, and along with the IC title match, which obviously has the caveat to me of the finish, if they mess that up and do the two people winning, or if they just try and find a way just to not have a clean kind of win or just a decisive win, let's say. This is one of those where I think it could steal the show, because I think that chemistry is so unique that, like we've seen it when we've had like Jeff and Matt have feuds. Just they take their matches to another level because there's that trust that exists between them two, because they are just bonded by literal blood. And it's the same
can't
thing
teach that.
No, you can't. And I think the fact that we're looking at Jey Uso, one half will be one of the better tag teams of definitely the last 10 years. and Roman Reigns, again, enough internet hate, for what he's done, but like for what he pushes or whatever from the internet fans. But in terms of the stuff he produced in inside the squared circle, one of the better performers definitely in WWE of the past kind of five years at least. So, don't sleep on this match, is what I'm saying. Roman Reigns will win. It will be quite decisive, I would have thought, because it's his first title defense. But I'm loving it. I'm absolutely I'm loving that we get this year. The main thing I'm loving is that we get new title programs. We've seen, obviously, on the Raw side thing, we've seen, obviously, Lashley get a title shot. I know that was obviously kind of good agenda getting injured. We've seen, obviously Dolph just pop up for a month and work a program. Like, I feel we're seeing, like we've seen like a lot of these kind of things happen. I think I'm all for it personally, and long may it kind of continue. Especially while there's no fans, because I think having longer burning feuds, like when we get to in the next match, can sometimes be detrimental without a fan base there behind it. But I'm loving this, and Roman Reigns over though.
Yeah, I think the little touches as well, like basically him coming out and saying like, oh, what's the deal with Paul Lee and stuff like that, using little, like, the way they would talk as family. They wouldn't say, hey, Paul Heyman, as he's known on TV. Everybody knows he had the nickname Paul Lee, so that is how they would have called it. And he does have that long history with the family, and I like the fact that they're using that, not just with why he's with Roman, but explaining like why, the rest of the family would understand it in some way with Usos and stuff.
So you going for Roman as well?
I'm going Roman as well. I'd also really like to see maybe the Usos managed by Paul Heyman eventually, and maybe he does recreate this kind of bloodline faction with him as the leader.
You know what?
Yeah.
This is one of those where I guess they're using Paul, and I'm happy they're using Heyman because obviously he's fantastic at what he does. And one of those where, if again, like we're looking at, Jimmy Uso potentially returning in a couple of months. Like if he was to be able to manage a faction of the Usos and Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman's mind behind that is money, and that is where I think the program enters a level of like, this is a next level program, of just a really, really good faction with so many great performers in it. And I guess we have those. Don't get me wrong. Like we've got stuff like Inner Circle and that. This will be a really concentrated one, where like all three of the members, they really, really want to be the best. And I think using Heyman more is just better. And I guess it works as well because if Brock doesn't re-sign, he is going to, I think. I don't know. If Brock doesn't re-sign, you've got something for Heyman outside of the Brock Lesnar world. And obviously when Brock Lesnar most likely resigns, he can come back into it and on his kind of 4 times a year deal. But Heyman's got weekly TV, which is what you need.
Yeah. And I like the way that they're like differentiating basically like Heyman's relationship with Brock to the one that he's got with Roman. It's more like Roman is his boss here, whereas it seems like he's more like the manager of Brock Lesnar, whereas this it's just like, right, okay, for Roman it's like, right, okay, you just do as I'm telling you pretty much, where it's more like Heyman will be going and doing all like Brock's negotiating and all that stuff, whereas so I mean I like it in that sense, and I do think that Heyman managing like that kind of Samoan faction, it could be, if both the Usos are there, they could even throw like Nia Jax in there as well, which
to be fair, give her something else to do as well. And I think he could really make a difference between you've seen, because he tried it before with Cesaro and McGillicuddy, I'm going to call him Curtis Axel, but like he could be like, oh, those were the Paul Heyman guys, but this is the Paul Heyman, this is the bloodline. I have deep history with this family. Like he could really play that up as to why this faction is different, and like the difference between how he is with Brock and how he is with Roman.
Yeah. So I think for me as well, it's got to be like a Roman. I think it's going to be a Roman win. I think it's going to be pretty quick as well. Like I think it could be just one of these where he comes in, spear, pin him, but then I also hope that they give Jey Uso just
a bit more than
basically
that,
just give him a chance just to showcase what he can do, and like unfortunately I think it's going to be one of these where they're not really, the fans I don't think are going to buy too many like false finishes here. I think it's just I think it's that cut and dry that Roman's going to win it. It's like, any kind of false finishes from Jay, they're not going to be like, oh, is he going to win the match? Is he going to win the match? But I just feel, it's going to be Roman. I think it's going to be kind of a squash, but I think Jay will have a very good showing for it. So so we move on to the final match, which is for the WWE Championship, which is an ambulance match. Now, it's scheduled to be Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton, with the caveat that possibly Randy Orton might not be able to compete, and if he can't, then Keith Lee will take his place in the match. So first of all, do we think that Randy's going to make the match? And secondly, who do we think is coming out as WWE Champion?
Randy's definitely in the match, is my prediction. Yeah, Randy's definitely in the match. I think they'd be very stupid, particularly with ratings, kind of down, and to kind of tease Randy Orton and then pull him for kind of he's one of the bigger names that they've got. Love Keith Lee. But also, I guess if they were to have Keith Lee, it puts him in the predicament of he's literally having a WWE title match within a month of joining the company, which, as much as they need to push new talent, I think that's pushing it a bit too far. And then obviously, you've got to see if Drew beats him, then it's like, well, where do you go with Keith afterwards? In terms of the match, now, I didn't know it was an ambulance match until you pointed it out to me. Though it does make sense. But now it infuriates me because it's a very hard stipulation, I feel, for the loser. And it's very final also, which I wasn't thinking they were going to do just yet with this feud, but potentially I guess they're thinking there's other stuff they want for either man, post this. If Drew wins, he's probably like one of the most dominant WWE champions, probably of the past kind of few years, which I guess is good. If Orton wins, then obviously Drew, he still would have had a good reign, but it will kind of show that perhaps they're pushing it towards something bigger. I'm going to go with Randy Orton. I know I said that last month. I just feel that he needs the win in this. I don't know why, and I don't like the stipulation. I've never really been a fan of ambulance matches anyway. It's one of those where it's not as obviously extreme as the eye for an eye stuff and some of the kind of cinematic stuff we've seen, but one of those where obviously someone's going to go to the medical facility, not hospital, can't say that word, the medical facility, and end up most likely having to take at least a couple of weeks off television. And neither of these guys should really be in that position to have to do that. I guess they could do the whole, interviews from at home kind of thing, but with respect, we know how things go now, and obviously with regards to wanting the show to be viewed more, you want two of your hottest commodities on it, But yeah, I'm gonna go with Randy Orton to win this one.
See, I think the opposite. I don't think Randy will be in the match. However, I don't think Randy will compete in the match, but he will appear in the match. So I think it will be Drew
driving the ambulance
Lee.
or something.
I don't know. I feel like Drew will go against Keith Lee because let's face it, if Keith Lee loses, he doesn't get affected by it because he's in the match, he loses the match. Same as Jey Uso. If he loses, he loses, and then it just pushes the champion over a little bit longer for a longer reign. So by Keith Lee losing this, it will push Drew to a longer reign as a champion. And then in the next pay-per-view, technically, you could do a three-way in a Hell in a Cell. And then that way, Randy could even pin Keith Lee again, and because there's more to it. So that way, it's one RKO, and he's got to hit it twice to win the match. So I think it's going to lead on to the next pay-per-view because of that. But I think Randy will appear, and I think he'll either hit Drew with the RKO to help Keith Lee try and win the match, or he'll just hit the RKO on either one of them and then just disappear. Because, you know, like he's supposed to strike when the moment's right. So I think him not being in the match and then striking during that will build it on. Plus, if he hits the RKO on Keith Lee, it builds him into the rivalry a bit more. Because, I mean, didn't he interrupt them when they was having a match before or something like that? Was it on one of the Raws? So it's already building that way anyway. So I think these three will have a match in the next pay-per-view. So for that, I think it's going to be Drew retaining, but he's going to retain against Keith Lee.
I don't know who's going to be in the match, but either way, I'm the same. Drew's going to keep the title. Obviously, as it's booked in a moment, things could change at Raw, things could change last minute, as they sometimes do. But if it's Orton, then I think they're building McIntyre back up recently. Since he's come back, he's had this new vicious streak about him. So I think it'd be silly for him to not keep it then. And then also Keith Lee, although he's new and fresh, and you could argue that losing might not be the best for someone new usually if you're trying to build him. I think he's still got that rub from being double champ, literally, 3 weeks ago it feels like still. It doesn't even feel that long since that reign began, then he gave one up and he lost one. So although they've been a bit weird with his booking lately, I think somehow they've still got the shine from the good things they did with him. So I don't think he needs to win or anything like that in order to look strong here. So yeah, I think McIntyre's going to win the ambulance match, or Salambulance. Did you see that toy they brought out? I saw it advertised. The Salambulance.
Yeah, I think so. I do think it's going to be Drew and Randy, and see, it's weird because I feel as though Drew could beat him, and I reckon it will be something where the door of the ambulance is open and it's just like that he runs and does a claymore. Or the other way that they could do it is that as he's running up to do the claymore, Orton sidesteps, Drew goes in the ambulance, and Orton just literally quickly shuts the door, and that's it. I think it's one of them matches where it's going to keep both guys looking strong because neither of them have to take a pinfall. It's just literally throw your opponent in the back of an ambulance, shut the door, drive off.
Yeah, and I don't think they need that 2 weeks off or anything like that, like you were saying, Lucas. I don't know if they have to do it as definitive. I know what you mean, like it could be potentially damaging to one of their characters if they did it that way, but I don't think it's more like it's kind of the same as just like a casket match. Like you don't really have to batter them. Sometimes they play that up, but yeah, just throwing them in is all really needs to happen. So I think they might go on that angle rather than the angle of they're battered, like a last man standing. I think you're looking more like that, innit? You know, they get out, they're throwing an ambulance, and they need some time off TV from that usually. So I think it is more the whole chuck them in, and that's the end of the match, and then we're back on Raw.
Yeah, for me, because obviously the two narratives that we've just described are very different. And in my head, how I'm thinking is I think that obviously with them having obviously a lot of the backstage attacks and focusing a lot around, especially, the punt with the concussion stuff side of things, and with them both already going to hospital, I think that's the narrative that I feel they're more likely to go down. So if anything, I see the finish. Like I said, if down to the finish, obviously, a kind of a cheap kind of trick by Orton perhaps, or one claymore into the ambulance, and that's fair enough. I wouldn't then expect them to spend 2 weeks off television, but I would forecast the finish more like if Drew is to win, it would be something like silly, like 5-6 claymores, and Orton's like limp, and he has to drag him into the ambulance, which to me it'd be unbelievable that Orton could appear on Raw the next night, and then vice versa. If Orton was to win, I see it being like RKO onto I guess they can go backstage, they can go wherever they want, RKO onto the floor, onto the top of the ambulance, punting him into the ambulance, and then fair enough, I guess Drew especially, I guess, has that kind of Scottish warrior thing, because he was still even after taking punt kicks, he was still walking about, wasn't he, on Raw a few weeks ago. So I guess he'd be more likely to then show up the next night and do the whole injured kind of champion kind of thing, and end up probably squashing someone like Ziggler. But yeah, it depends on the narrative goes. Nice if the narrative the other way, I guess. So that's why I went for that prediction. But it could be the other way, where we could get tricked. It's interesting. I think these matches could be because there's not a pinfall involved. It's very different to predict, isn't it, for me? That's how I feel anyway. Like when there's a pinfall involved, like if there was a pinfall involved, I would go for Drew. Most likely, I would go for Drew. I could see, okay, they're going down the whole line from SummerSlam where neither of them hit their finish, and obviously Claymore done. But with this whole ambulance match stipulation, it adds more to it, I think. And I'm guessing it will be on last as well, out of the matches that have been announced anyway. So I think that they'd go for like a bigger kind of fight feel match, more kind of bloody and brawly, more so than just like default. But you know, I think it could be a very good match though. They got chemistry clearly. They work well together, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I think like going back on what you say, like for me, I think it's a way of keeping Randy quite strong, so that when he does. I think it's inevitable that Randy's going to be the guy that's going to take the belt off of Drew eventually, but I can see it more, and we already said it with like the SmackDown Women's title, is I can see it happening inside Hell in a Cell, like the blow-off match, the final match of the feud, you know, potentially the triple threat, you know, and I think it's going to go down a thing of possibly triple threat with. Do you know, I could even see it being the triple threat, and I think you mentioned it. One of you mentioned it earlier with Keith Lee taking the pinfall. But yeah, so for me, like my prediction is going to be Drew McIntyre to retain the championship. I don't know how, but yeah, Drew for me is going to win. So as you guys have probably realised, there are 3 championships that we have not discussed. That's because at time of recording, their matches have not officially been announced, and surprisingly, they all come from Raw actually. So the Raw Women's Championship, where Asuka will defend, the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. We're not 100% sure on the opponents, but we know it's going to be one of 3 teams that are going to be doing battle on Monday Night Raw, and also the United States Championship, where Bobby Lashley will defend, and we are no closer to knowing who he's going to face, because quite frankly no one's really been built up for that, but it's probably going to be Retribution versus Bobby Lashley for the US title, and Bobby Lashley's going to win. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us for the Clash of Champions predictions. Doesn't look like we're going to see much of a shift, I don't think, in the predictions, because we've pretty much gone relatively the same across the board on this one. There's not been many deviations, I don't think. So
everyone playing it safe this month.
I think pretty much
tactical, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. But yeah, so thank you guys for joining us. Thank yous for watching. Don't forget, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Keep sharing the videos with your friends, and leave us comments in the little box down below here. And don't forget, rebnoise.com for all of your wrestling updates that you need from us. So, there we go, boys. Let's see who comes out as champions from Clash of Champs.
Gold Rush.